Hello and welcome to Faith-Fueled Leadership by Wholistic Mindfulness, a space for women who are navigating calling, leadership, and growth through faith, clarity, and discernment. If this is your first time here, you are so welcome. And if you've been here before, it's always good to have you back. If this kind of content supports you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe so you can continue growing in leadership, purpose, and alignment. Today, we're going to slow this down. This is not a rushed conversation. This is one of those conversations you sit with because we're talking about something that many women feel but don't always articulate. There's a moment many women quietly experience but don't always have language for. It's the moment where you're still showing up, still doing what needs to be done, still carrying your responsibilities, but something inside you feels tired in a different way. Not physically tired, not even emotionally overwhelmed, just internally stretched. You're thinking more than you used to, processing more than you used to, sitting with decisions longer than you used to, and what once felt simple now feels layered. And if you're honest, it's not because the work has suddenly become harder, it's because you've been carrying it alone for too long. There hasn't been a space to release the thoughts, to hear your own ideas reflected back, to allow clarity to form outside of your own internal dialogue. And so everything stays inside. And over time, what you're carrying quietly becomes heavier than it needs to be. And what makes this even more complex is that from the outside, nothing looks wrong. You're still functioning, you're still progressing, you're still making decisions. So there's no obvious reason to question the way you've been doing things. But growth doesn't always get blocked by failure. Sometimes it's slowed by isolation. When you're only exposed to your own thinking, your perspective begins to narrow without you realizing it. You revisit the same ideas. You circle the same conclusions. You try to push yourself into clarity, but clarity doesn't come from pressure. It comes from perspective. And perspective often requires another voice, another lens, another space where what you're carrying can be processed, not just managed. This is why doing everything alone can feel productive, but quietly limit how far and how clearly you move. And this is where the deeper shift begins. Because at some point, the question is no longer, can I handle this? You already know that you can. The question becomes, do I want to keep handling this alone? And that's a very different question. It's a more honest question. It's a more mature question, because it acknowledges that capability is not the issue. Capacity is. Alignment is. Sustainability is. And choosing support in that moment is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is ready to grow differently. It's the moment where leadership becomes less about proving strength and more about building in a way that allows you to continue clearly and sustainably without unnecessary weight. Why courage requires support, not independence, not isolation, not I'll figure it out, but support. Many women have learned how to handle things. You've become dependable, capable, resilient. You don't fall apart easily. You don't stop moving easily. You don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. You've learned how to carry, and over time, this becomes your identity. You become the one who figures it out, and people trust you because of that. But here's what often isn't said. When you become the one who handles everything, you also become the one who carries everything, and those are not the same thing. Isolation doesn't always look like withdrawal. Sometimes it looks like thinking everything through on your own, processing silently, and making decisions internally. You're still showing up, still working, and still leading, but everything is happening inside. And because you've trained yourself to function like this, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels normal, but normal doesn't always mean aligned. There's a kind of weight that's hard to explain. It's not burnout, failure, or even confusion. It's internal heaviness. You're thinking about things constantly, replaying decisions, revisiting ideas, and nothing feels fully settled. This is what happens when clarity is processed alone, because clarity is not just found in thinking. It's refined in conversation, reflection, and perspective. Let's be honest. Doing things alone can feel safer because no one challenges you, no one sees your uncertainty, and no one questions your thinking. You stay in control, and control feels like stability. But control can also limit growth, because growth requires exposure, feedback, and expansion. Scripture does not model isolated leadership. It models partnership, guidance, and mentorship. Moses had support from Aaron. Paul had people he walked with, including Timothy. Jesus built community intentionally with his 12 disciples. Even at the highest level of calling, there was still support. This is important because it tells us support is not optional, it is structural. There is a subtle belief many women carry: I should be able to figure this out. But where did that come from? I'm asking because leadership was never designed as a solo navigation, an internal only processing, or an isolated growth stage. That belief creates pressure that was never meant to exist. The shift is simple, but not easy. From I can handle this to I don't have to handle this alone. That shift releases pressure, it creates space, and allows clarity to come in a different way. At this level, courage looks different. It's no longer I'll just push through. It becomes I'm ready to be supported. That requires humility, honesty, and openness, and that is a deeper level of leadership. Choosing support means being seen, being heard, being challenged, and that can feel vulnerable. But vulnerability is not weakness, it's access. So I want you to sit with this. Where are you still doing this alone, even though you don't want to anymore? Don't rush the answer. Just notice it. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to Faith Fueled Leadership by Wholistic Mindfulness for more teachings on faith, leadership, and clarity. And remember, courage is not just about moving forward. Sometimes it's about choosing not to carry everything alone.